Hey guys, before we start, people are always saying they can't understand me, so I'm gonna be speaking a little bit slower in this what if. But with that said, I'm gonna start the what if already. Hey guys, it's a bit small here, with what if Chuck Norris replaced Saitama. Now before we start, I'm going to be nerfing Chuck by like infinity, because I can't have destroyed the multiverse with like one punch. But let's start the what if already. So we start off with Chuck standing to the side of a black hole. But on the other side of the black hole is Cicada Shanziro. I can never pronounce the name. As black hole starts putting them together, Chuck is getting ready his roundhouse kick. I couldn't speak for a second. And Cicada is getting ready to punch him. And as their blows collide, we're able to see the past battles of other universes and stuff. But then they both disappeared, leaving a group of stars that look like them fighting. But as Chuck looks around, he finds himself in a city, but then says, I did it again. Then says, so I'm in One Punch Man, huh? It doesn't matter. As he's walking around, he sees a giant crab, and he thinks, so I'm at this part, huh? I think maybe I get a challenge when he meets Saitama. But then he sees no Saitama suit and says, he has to die for my fight or something. A must not exist in this world. But as he sees the crab about to strike the butt chin kid, forget his name, Chuck says, maybe hanging around here could be fun. He then walks in front of the crab. And as the crab monster backs away for some reason, says, what is this aura of death? Chuck then thinks to himself, that all these monsters are gonna run away if they can sense his power or aura. So he hides it and says, I think I'm gonna eat you. But the kid looks at Chuck Norris. He realizes the sun is making him impossible to see him, but also making it really cool. That it's like giving the perfect light or shadow, making him look like badass, but can't see his face. You guys understand what I mean? But the kid thinks this is weird. The sun shouldn't be doing this. But as he's watching Chuck just says, cook. Just like the such monster lights up. And that looks like a 5-star meal with lemon on the side. Then he hears the kid say, who are you? But Chuck just walks away and thinks him up. If he's going to replace Saitama, then it's better people don't know who he is. But then cut to 3 years later. Well, kinda 3 years later. Chuck just tells time to send him 3 years in the future. But as Chuck is walking, the explosion appears and destroys everything. But as Chuck is standing in debris unharmed, and with his groceries also unharmed, because he's just Chuck. He sees the source of the explosion. He sees Vaccine Man. But as Vaccine Man is about to crush a little girl, Chuck appears in front of Vaccine Man. And when Vaccine Man tries to squish him and the girl, he closes his hand before it explodes. That's when Vaccine Man says, how is this possible? But Chuck says, whenever a man touches me, they will die, but I use less than 0% of my power. Suddenly your arm was destroyed. But Vaccine Man says, what are you? But Chuck says, somebody who's too strong. He then blinks and Vaccine Man explodes. But as Chuck goes away, he thinks how boring it is. We then cut to Chuck picking up some crab legs. But when he goes to the cash register, the lady just says, that's weird. It must be broken, because they're saying we owe you money. And the girl stops in her tracks, because she hears rumbling, or feels rumbling. But as Chuck is walking out of the store, a giant monster appears and steps on Chuck Norris. And the giant screams and says, damn it! What was that, a Lego? Then he says, what is it, brother? And it can't be a Lego. Then he hears the voice say, he stepped on me, and it's his own fault. But scientist says, who are you? Chuck just smiles and says, I am the strongest being. The scientist says, quick, kill that guy who hurt you. And this time the giant looks at Chuck first, since he made him hurt his foot. But he slaps his hand on his shoulder. He screams and says, it hurts. Then sees that when the giant smacked Chuck Norris went through his hand. It was like he slapped a nail. But the giant says, who are you? Chuck just flicks his finger, and the giant falls and crushes his brother. And Chuck just walks away, and goes home. And when he's walking home, he kills like a couple monsters on the way home, but nothing too notable. A couple days later, there's a swarm of mosquitoes near his city. Maybe he's saying, why would he live in Sea City? But the minute Chuck walked into a building, it can't imagine. Because it was so scared of Chuck Norris, it defied physics. But as Chuck is watching TV, it looks like a news broadcasting. He sees a large swarm of mosquitoes, and he then says, well, looks like it's about time to get a disciple. Or become a sensei or whatever. He then cuts to a blonde cyborg scanning the area. As he looks around, he's scanning the area, says, warning, warning, says, pray for your life. He says, what the hell? But then he sees a swarm and sees a bunch of mosquitoes. So he wants to react to that direction. Running away from the direction that said, warning, warning, pray for your life. Which was where Chuck Norris was. When he arrives, he sees a bunch of mosquitoes kill a man by draining his blood. Then sees them all swarm around him. Or swarm around him, then swarm around a mosquito girl, I meant. Sorry guys, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. He thinks that she looks like a human woman. He says, so she makes them drain the blood while she takes it over herself. And says, just stay still so I can eliminate you. But the mosquito girl says, finally some new blood. She then sends a bunch of mosquitoes to attack Genos. But Genos just uses his fire to destroy it all. He then starts shooting at the mosquito girl. But she keeps on dodging and getting closer to Genos. Until she swipes at him and takes one of his arms. But as she does this, she realizes that Genos took both her legs. But Genos gets ready to attack. There's a man with a beard and a cowboy hat walking down the street towards him. That's when Genos asks, who are you? What he didn't notice was that when she flew up, she surrounded herself in her swarm of mosquitoes. She then set them all after Genos and Chuck. But as they fly toward Genos and Chuck, Genos causes a huge explosion and wipes out all the mosquitoes. But as he's saying, he thought she was smart because of her appearance, but it seems she was no smarter than a stupid insect. Then he remembers, wait, what about that man? But as Genos looks, he sees Chuck is unharmed. And not even his clothes are burnt. It's almost like the fire tried to avoid him. Because the knife on the floor near him is burnt. But Genos asks, how? He then sees or hears laughing. He then sees the mosquito girl is completely unharmed. He's laughing. She then says, look how strong I become. She then swipes and destroys the building. She then charges at Genos, starts ripping him apart. But as she's ripping him apart, she's laughing. She then says that maybe she keep his head as a trophy or something. Genos hears this and decides that instead of being a trophy, he should self-destruct. Before he can blow himself up, there's a muscular hand grab Mosquito's throat and says, how? Chuck says that he really hates bugs. Then smashes her head into the ground, which instantly kills her. And when he does this, he looks at Genos and says, fix yourself up, kid. I'm not gonna fix you. You become too strong if I do it. And then he starts walking away. As he's walking away, Genos senses some sort of incredible power. And he just saw him wipe out that monster like it's nothing. So Genos says, can I get your name? And Chuck tells him that his name is Chuck Norris. That's when Genos thinks that his name is American. Genos doesn't ask if he could be a disciple. And Chuck says that he might not want to be his disciple or his sensei. Then he says that one day he become too strong and nothing makes him like a challenge. Not to mention people might be mean to you. But Genos says, please, I have to get stronger. So Chuck says, fine, see you when you get better. And he walks away. But a couple days later, while Chuck is chilling in his mansion, that somehow fits in an apartment like a TARDIS, he thinks to himself, man, that fight was really boring. And but that's what he doesn't know, or does know, just doesn't care. Okay, he knows everything. Somebody was watching his fight. A man with glasses and a lab coat. But as he's watching Chuck Norris completely destroy his monster, says, this man is incredibly strong. And from his expression, it seems like he didn't care about defeating it. Like it was just regular mosquito swatting. Then says, he's very manly as well. Then you see the sign said, it doesn't matter. Just send some people after him so they can bite him, whether FBI's own will or against it. We then cut to General's knocking on his door, and Chuck says, about time you showed up. Then invites General inside. And General says, like, how's your house bigger inside than outside? But Chuck just says, because I'm Chuck Norris. So General says, okay, Master Chuck. Or Master Norris, I mean. That's when Chuck says, just call me Chuck. So General decides to call him Master Chuck or something. That's when Chuck says, you got yourself fixed up pretty quick. General says, yes, and despite it's made with machine parts and metal, it can easily be repaired. He then asks if he has any modifications. But Chuck says, nope, it's all natural. General asks, if you would like to hear a story. But Chuck says, he already knows it. General says, how? Then says, they can know somebody's life story before they even have a life story. That's what General says. So when General says, it sounds like it defied laws of physics. That's when Chuck says, well, it's a long story. But that's not important. That's when General asks, why not? And Chuck just says, cause of that. He then points to a wall, which instantly gets broken by a monster. But as the wall instantly repairs itself, and the monster says, wait, how did the wall fix itself? He just gets smacked and dies. But she says, the wall can repair itself. You don't want me breaking it again. But as General breaks through the wall and lands on the ground, he says the wall has already repaired itself before he even landed. And Chuck is already there, and he's holding an injured robot gorilla. He says, what happened? That's when Robot and General look around and see a bunch of their dead bodies of monsters. That's when General says, well, okay, I'm confused. And Armored Gorilla says, yeah, I'm also confused. How did you defeat everybody in less than a second? He says, because he's Chuck Norris. Then says, General spun on me, we had to get rid of the House of Evolution. And Armored Gorilla says, how did you know it was us? And we would know our resistance. And Chuck Norris says, because he's Chuck Norris. That he was explaining everything to General on the way there. So him and General start running there. General says, but first I need to ask this robot a question, or cyborg. We're looking at Armored Gorilla. But Chuck says, he's not the cyborg he's looking for. General says, okay. Then starts following Chuck Norris, or Chuck. I don't know what to call him. But as they're running there, the scientists are freaking out. They're saying, he defeated all our guys in less than a second? And that he might be the same level as Carnage Kubata, which means that they need to release him to face off this monster of a man. We then cut to General's and Chuck running. When General asks if he could fly, and Chuck says, kind of, but he doesn't want General to lose him, so it's better if they run instead. As they land in front of the building, Chuck then says, do you want me to destroy it, or do we want the honors? And General says, I'll destroy it, Master. General then lights up his hands and destroys the entire building. Chuck then says that he sensed a secret passage earlier, and they should enter. So they do. And General says, how do you know all this? And how she's so strong? And Chuck just says, because he's Chuck Norris. And this kind of gives the General to think. He says, but it's almost like you're defying physics. And Chuck is just like, he's been doing that since he was born, or before his mom was even born. Well, General asks how. We then cut to the later evolution shooting a gun, or a clone of Junus, I don't know his name, is shooting a gun before he gets killed by a giant monster. As he's killed, the clone says, no. That's when Carnage Kubata turns around and sees an injured clone of Genos or something. I'm not sure who's the original. Then asks, so you finally showed up, huh? Genos says that a monster that might be stronger than him has come to kill all of them. That he might be the only hope. Carnage Kubata just smiles and asks, how strong is this guy? And smiles. We then cut to Genos and Chuck. And while Genos is asking about his origins and his power, Chuck says they can explain in our time. But right now they can't. This says somebody's here. Genos asks, who's here? Well, Genos is confused. A couple seconds later, he gets a warning that something is coming. But Carnage asks, who's the target? And Genos says, it's the one with the cowboy hat and a beard. Carnage says that you won't need the other one. But he tries to strike Genos. He realizes, Genos is gone already. Then sees Chuck holding Genos. He says, you're faster than I thought. And you're fast, then let's take this somewhere else. And they end up walking into a giant right room. But Genos is saying, let me fight him, Master. Chuck says, No, I'm currently the only person strong enough to defeat him in his room. But don't worry, even if this monster is the strongest being on the planet, he doesn't stand a chance against me. But we then hear walking, panting. We see Dr. Genius next to Genos say that I need to see this through, and needs to see how powerful he is. But Carnage says that he might be fast, but he senses no real power from him, and it's going to be an easy fight. But he charges at Chuck. Chuck just stands there and says, "Can't sense anything, I won't allow you." He says, "For once, I'll give you a peek of a small percent of my power." Carnage then backs away and runs into the farthest corner he can, and he says, "What the hell are you?" Like he had no power, but then he put some sort of godlike being or something. I don't know what it is. He says, "What the hell are you? Some sort of ancient demon? God? Or something new entirely?" Then Genos and Dr. Genius are shocked because Genius just says his strongest spider is about to beat Chuck Norris or something, and he just ran away. And Genos is watching this monster who believes that his master is some sort of god or some god entity or something. But Chuck just laughs and says, "You want to know my origins too?" And Genos says that this is going to be incredible. Is thinking, the master is going to reveal the origin of his powers or strength right now, in front of these villains. But it doesn't matter. He needs to know how he got the strength. Then activates the recording software. Chuck Norris explains that when he was a little boy, he was weak. He wasn't the strongest. Then he joined the army, beginning training. But after leaving the army, he wandered the world, learning different martial arts and mastering many different fighting styles. Sorry about that, guys. My parents were like, "No, what's the word? No concept of sending them a recording and stuff, so it's being really loud." But I handled it. But like I was saying, he wandered the earth, learning different martial arts and mastering many different fighting styles. And Genius and Genos are both thinking that there has to be more. But Chuck then says that I then decided to make a new martial arts known as Chu Kundu or Chuck Kondo. I don't know how to say it. This martial art changed everything, because I may call it my own name, but its true name is Universal Way. And with this martial art, it allows me to harness the powers of the universe and break the physics of it. That's when Genos says it can't be just martial arts. Genos is in shock and Carnage thinking, what is he talking about? Chuck then says it didn't make him stronger for fusion, and it also changed his history. After creating this new fighting style, his body no longer applied to normal limits. He was incredibly stronger, and he had changed reality to the point that when he was born, he built the hospital he was born in, and even drove his mother home. And that was not even one of his strongest feats. For example, when he does push-up, he pushes the earth down. When he went skydiving without a parachute, he made a Grand Canyon. He was attacked by King Cobra, and the Cobra died from the bite. According to our sensory relativity, it can kick somebody yesterday. Even you have to make special clothes to withstand its kicking power. According to scientists, the Big Bang is equal to 1 CHRK, or 1 Chuck Norris roundhouse kick. One day, he met a man who gave him a challenge, and when they fought, they destroyed everything: the earth, the sun, the planets that surrounded it, and they just destroyed everything in a fight. And when they created a black hole and collided their strikes, they broke the dimensional barrier on accident and sent themselves into other worlds. And this world to be exact. And both Genius and Genos are shocked, because these feats are impossible. That's when he's saying, "It's not physically possible." So Genos says, "Master, are you kidding me? What you're saying isn't even possible." And Chuck Norris just throws some book and says, "Genos, read it." Let's look at this book titled 100 of Chuck Norris Feats. Chuck then says, they can choose to believe him or what, but he should truly know this he does his origins. He says, "You know what? I learned an ancient technique a while back ago. I used to share memories, but I don't use it often. Since here's a few of mine." And he touches Genos' head. Genos' mouth drops, and Genius says, "Is what he said was true?" Genos doesn't say anything. Then when Genius says, "I'm thinking that's a kiss," he says, "You might also restore in the Carnage." But Carnage says, "No." Genius says, "I don't think even 100 of you can stand a chance." But he says, No. Even as we go beyond his limits, he will defeat this man. He can't can't stop this mockery. He then turns purple. Connor says, "Behold, my strongest form." But Genius isn't scared, because he believes Chuck might defeat him now. But as Connor charges at Chuck, his fist is stopped and instantly creates a shockwave. That's when he throws another punch, and his will stop. He then sees Chuck holding both his fists. Connor says, "No, it's not possible." He says, "How could you? What's up with a monster like you exist?" He then sees a third fist strike him in the chest, which destroys him and creates a huge explosion or shockwave that destroys half the building and mountain they're in. And as the smoke disappears, Genos and Gino see Chuck standing there, with a third fist coming out of his beard. That's when Genos says, "Master, I don't believe that anybody can even fathom your power." Chuck says, "Let's go, Genos." Genos says, "Yes, Master." When they leave, Genos is Genius. I don't know, scientist. Lying there and says, that's what I got looks like. Huh? Then says, "I think I'm done with evolution." God damn my parents. Sorry guys, I can't do anything about that. But after they leave, the S-Class are called. When they arrive to the agency, they're surprised to see everybody's here. Then Tornado says, "Why are you here?" Then the director says, "An hour ago, there was an earthquake," and everybody says, "Yeah, we all sensed it. It wasn't like that big and it shouldn't have caused any destructions or any worry of S-Class." That's when the man says, "It was caused throughout the entire Earth." The entire says, "That shouldn't be possible." But Surfing says, "There's something caused it." That's when Metal Bat says, "Oh, did Tornado throw a tantrum?" And Tornado's like, "Shut up." Metal Bat says, "Okay, what caused it?" That's when the man says that they were investigating a group known as the House of Evolution. Earlier today, they were destroyed by a cyborg they were tracking. Later that day, the exact time the earthquake occurred, the underground base of the House of Evolution was destroyed, taking half the mountain with it. We believe the cyborg could not do this by itself, which means there is only two options. And when we take the master, what are those options? Tornado says, "It was either a blast or a gullible threat." And with that, everybody goes quiet. But guys, I'm going to end the video here. Before I leave, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and anything else between, so maybe you can defeat all your future enemies with one punch.